Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 11th of June 2015. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host this afternoon, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio behind the technical desk is Nick Green. We're going to be joined live straight away by Mike West from Bastion Radio. Let's see whether we've got him there. Should be.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Hi, Brian.
Hello, Mike. Good to see you back.
And
I'll just make a brief comment on the weather. What's the weather like with you?
it's sunny and cloudy, but very gusty, very windy.
Yeah, we've got much the same down here in Plymouth. So a little bit grey and cool as well. That wind quite chilly.
Yeah.
And we've got mixed reports from across the country. So pretty much an English summer. I think the Scots have got a bit of the English summer as well. So there we are. Global warming due to the beavers and ground squirrels, of course, in the tundra, of course, according to the Telegraph. Well, I think you are going to lead us off with mobile phone intercept masts in London.
Yeah, we saw this quite surprisingly. A story from Sky News. They've been doing an investigation into these mobile phone masts, temporary mobile phone masts going up in and around London. They say up to 20 that they've discovered of these bits of equipment called Stingray, which intercept phone calls. Well, in fact, they don't just target the criminals that they say that they're targeting and the terrorists that they're targeting. It takes any phone call and information. That's any data, anything you're sending over your mobile phone, as like one big capture net. So they have to sift through the lot. So they're taking your private conversations. Now, Sky News say they've seen and witnessed up to 20 of these sites. We know for a fact that the M25 is absolutely flooded with these devices. People normally think if you see the mobile phone mast in the middle of this picture here, that it could be these things that are going up. Well, they're permanent structures, so you're more likely to find the kit that looks like the antenna array that's on to the right, which can be easily mountable to masts anywhere or even telegraph poles. And lots of these are being seen. You can see these things at the side of the M25. So there's much more than 20. Now, the big question is, if the police are using these, who's licensing this? Because we're drawing blanks on this. The police are sort of denying that they're not using it. Could be third parties using it. Well, we want to know if Ofcom have licensed these things, because these things actually radiate within the mobile spectrum. So you can't just go around purchasing this kit without having relevant licenses. But that is to be found out from a Freedom of Information request to Ofcom, which I won't hold my breath on a reply, Brian.
Mike, thank you for that. I admitted earlier that I hadn't actually, I wasn't aware of this before. Just give it to me again. Who do we think has actually erected these devices?
Well, we know for a fact that the Metropolitan Police have been using Cessna aircraft. This was highlighted last year, just around about the summertime last year. They're using what they call Cessna Caravan aircraft, and these are a leased aircraft, and they've got up to 4 of them, which they use for mobile phone tracking. There was a case that was highlighted on RT and the mainstream media, and including the Daily Mail last year, of one of these Cessna aircraft tracking planes from Surrey right down to the Sussex coast. And you could see on one of these apps that you get on your mobile phones, I think it's called Flight Radar 24, the aircraft that was tracking this, flying around in circles, obviously tracking something on the road, using these Stingray devices. Now, these Stingray devices have been around for about 10, 15 years. America have been using them for a long time. So it's quite a recent thing that the UK authorities have been found out as to be using this equipment. So we know they've been using them in aircraft, but now to use them and be putting them up on land-based masts is quite a worrying move, because they're able to block cell sites with these things. So I think at a touch of a button, if they wanted to, they could shut down the communication network, whether the license providers like O2, EE, and et cetera, whether they want to or not. So they have quite a bit of control over these monitoring devices, which can cause interference to everyday licensed mobile phone masts. So it's quite a worrying trend, and the police are sort of on the fence as to whether they're admitting that they use them. They are tokenly admitting it, but they're saying if we give you more information than that, the advantage falls on the terrorists and the criminal side.
Yeah.
Which, to me is ridiculous. It's they're either using these legitimately and lawfully, or they're not.
Well, that's absolutely the case, and the fact they don't want to answer the questions, for me anyway, says that straight away they've got something to hide.
Yeah.
But you've hit the nail on the head at the end there, because all of this equipment that's coming into use, and we've got CCTV cameras, we understand, now being lowered, so they're being put at a lower height in London in particular, and this is to allow those CCTVs to capture people's faces.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the camera's high, it tends to look at the top of somebody's head or look down on the face, and we understand that cameras are now being lowered. So we've got a British state under David Cameron. Let's remember the man who's actually responsible, David Cameron. We've got the British state now simply collecting facial scans of people. So everybody who walks in front of the camera is apparently a potential criminal. And now we've got phones being intercepted with the possibility of jamming, of blocking of signals. And all of these things are being done on the basis that there's a terrorist threat and they can only protect us if they put this gear into place. This is an absolute lie. Do you think the public are still swallowing it, or do you think some of them are starting to ask the right questions now?
I'm just very surprised with the public view, to be honest, Brian. I think, the more of this surveillance that they bring in and the technology surrounding it, the more people seem to do this and, nothing to fear, nothing to hide, and nothing to hide, nothing to fear, whatever you want to say. But where does it stop? This is the thing. My views on public apathy, and I just don't think people I just think they've turned a blind eye to it, and probably get the comments when you see this on the news that, oh well, it doesn't really affect me, I'm not doing nothing wrong, which isn't the point. This isn't the point at all. Like you say, this is a very paranoid state, and it's ramping up, and we can see the paranoia. And they're running scared, this state. They just don't want people talking or communicating to each other. And if people are, they just want to be able to intercept it. We saw that last week with the 5 companies that are being awarded contracts to monitor social media. This isn't a country, really, I want to be in, Brian, because it's getting more and more paranoid. As far as I'm concerned, if they're saying it's terrorism, terrorism's won, and it hasn't even started yet.
Well, I noticed at one point, Mike, you paused, which was the slightly lost for words, because this is in your face. UK Column has done this repeatedly. What more can we say to people to get the message across? But we need the people who are awake to be out spreading the word.
Yeah, I just say, if you're not prepared to do it for yourself, Brian, do it for your kids or your future of your kids. This is what this is about. If it's this bad now, what's it going to be like? I look at my 8-9-year-old son, and I think, if it's like this now, what's it going to be like by the time he's in his teens or in his and he gets into his 20s? It's going to be unlivable here. Yeah.
Well, we'll just add, as we always do, that if you are worried about the fact the state has now got this massive surveillance capability, what we should all be doing is talking more. Let's have 10 million people sending out 1,000 emails a day talking about what they want to talk about, and then we can give these surveillance teams something to do. And as somebody else has pointed out in our chat room a few minutes ago, of course, if you're going to wear dark glasses or paint a few lines on your face, become a cat for the day, the CCTV cameras are going to get very confused. Well, where's it going to head? What sort of future are we building for our children? We're now getting clues, and one of the subjects UK Column's talked about for several years now is the rise of very dark, unpleasant artwork, and this was sent through to us this morning. What is it? Well, it's the She Guardian. This has appeared in London. The story that I've picked up on is from iHorror, And I'd encourage you to go to that site and read the story, because it's the article. It's a very good article that's been written. In it, it's got this. This is part of it. She-Guardian looks like the sort of creature you'd expect to see guarding the gates of hell, and perhaps even being ridden around by Satan himself. The sculpture is downright nightmarish. Remember, it's an adult writing this, and I'm not sure I'm inspired or delighted. Now, where's that comment come from? Well, Councillor Robert Davis, Deputy Leader of Westminster City Council, insists that that is the intended reaction. He said that the Marble Arch location is a prime location. We only use it for the best work. And he says, hopefully this piece will inspire and delight in equal measure. Now, of course, this work is doing nothing of the sort. This is, one, giving a message. Two, it is dark, it's depressing, it's making some people fearful. What would that thing do in the mind of a 4-year-old child? Well, the answer is start to damage it. And these people clearly know what they're doing. And somebody has paid a lot of money to allow, apparently, this Russian sculptor to use, I think it's some 4 tons of bronze to make this beast. Well, this isn't a little bit of loose cash out of Westminster Council. This is some serious money. The dark arts coming in here, I think, Mike.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Austerity arts, they call it. They've definitely got the money for these projects. Something else that's happening on the other side of the world that's going to be coming here shortly as well are these snuff puppets. This we found in the Daily Mail yesterday. They laugh it off by saying that's one way to stop kids having sex. Creepy giant puppets reenact childbirth in excruciating detail in the most bizarre sex education show ever. Now, this is being drafted up as a sex education show. As you can see in these pictures here, it's quite graphical. We go to their website. You can see some of the stuff that they're into. It's quite scary stuff, and they're getting kids involved with this, which is quite scary. These look like demons that we see on site here. Here we see this body that's killed off at the beginning. If I just quickly take you to this bit of video here, we can see quite clearly a brick falls on this puppet's head, which starts off this chain reaction of life, death, and things like that, as we can see here. Quite graphically, we can see this monstrosity giving birth. As you can see here, it's quite graphical. If you're a bit squeamish, I'd look away now. But here we can see it giving birth. Now, there's children watching this, and later out through this video, the body parts start to detach, and things like the breast detaches and starts squirting at children in the audience. As we can see here, kids roaming around with the body. Here we go. There's the boob squirting. There's another one that's not shown here, but we've got pictures of it, of a penis running around squirting at kids as well. And for some reason, the heart comes out. This pig comes along. The body, the puppet eats the pig, and then the pig is given birth via the human being's parts. Now, as we can see here, the pig is just about to be eaten by the mouth, and we'll see this pig eventually being given birth to. It's strange, it's weird. It's certainly stuff I wouldn't want my children to see. Here we go, and it's having a crap now. But this, do we really want to see this, Brian? Is this stuff that we want our children to see?
Mike, this was actually sort of brought to us a few days ago, and I had a look at some of these clips myself, which I just found outrageous. So the so-called Puppet Company is based in Australia. And of course, when we start to see how do they get the enormous sums of money to make this sort of stuff? Well, it's all come through the public sector. This is not coming through somebody setting up their own company. This is the arts, as they are trying to call it, being funded by public money in Australia. But they're boasting that this culture of snuff puppets is now being exported across the world. So I think we can expect to see them here. What do you actually think they're trying to do by showing particularly children this sort of stuff?
It's just messing with minds, Brian. That they're saying that this can put kids off of sex, but I think the more you introduce this at an earlier age, the more it makes children curious. The way they're doing it certainly isn't by any sort of normal means. This is quite horrific stuff. If we look at their webpage here, it says about our streams of activity, our giant puppet roaming acts and community workshops and main stage shows. We have a range of work that we present in a variety of indoor and outdoor spaces. Most is suitable for families. We also create works for adult-only audiences, and I had a look a bit of that earlier, and it's just wacky and bizarre. Snuff puppets are like a circus, parading through the town using outdoor and roaming performances to ambush audiences. Notice that word, ambush audiences, probably take them right by surprise and entice them into the world of theatre. Our art explores, provokes and inspires progressive cultural change. Now that's quite an important statement to make, isn't it? Cultural change. What it's changing to what? To make,
Well, I think the artwork tells us, because again, somebody in the chat room has said, well, this is satanic. It's absolutely satanic.
Yeah.
I think...
well, just look at their names, snuff puppets. I mean, if you really take a definition of that here, the verb is to kill, assassinate, destroy, and murder. A real, not staged, filmed murder, usually of raping and killing a woman. In some cases, it's viewed for sexual arousal.
Yeah. I'm afraid I can't remember the gentleman's name, but some time ago, UK Column reported, of course, that one of the people brought as an expert witness at Leveson inquiry was actually giving lectures at Bournemouth University on the wonderful subject of the urban myth of snuff films. And, of course, the adverts that went through with that, pretty graphic. But this stuff, of course, is not just coming in the general media. Let's come back to the BBC. We always like to cover them. And this is pointed out to me again over the last few days that BBC Newsbeat, which is clearly there for youngsters, is simply pushing pornography at young people. And so a big article here on Newsbeat, revenge porn victim Chrissy Chambers says the law needs strengthening. I don't quite understand all the story, but I think she's got a new partner. And then there's another article on this same site talking about Lego apologising for window licker toy. But all of this pumped across by the BBC, so they use our money to attack the minds of young people. It isn't just coming through the media, of course. I'll just bring in very quickly this overview that somebody sent us as to what the parties were doing. So basically, this was the Conservatives. They want to issue pardons for men convicted of sodomy and gross indecency. They're going to support more homosexualisation of sex education. Remember that they've got a Stonewall advisor to the Education Secretary. They're going to lower the abortion limit. And basically, British values are to become pink laws to support LGBT. So, as we've said many times, as far as we can see, the gay community in particular is being used as a political puppet to drive in something really very nasty. Lib Dems pardon historic convictions between adults, tackle homophobia. What else are they going to be doing? Well, laws, basically, so they tell us how we can think. Labour, sorry, we got Labour on screen. Yes, we have. Point international LGBT rights envoy, expand and strengthen homo and transphobic hate crime. So this is all 1984 stuff. SNP's the same. UKIP is unique in not supporting this in the same way. But if we get down to the Greens at the bottom, where are we? There we go. Mandatory LGBTIQ rights, decriminalise the sex industry, drugs, membership of what's terrorist groups. I think that should be inverted commas. So free condoms and massive stuff pumped into schools. So this stuff is deliberate. And why would you want to push this at the minds of young people. Well, we believe, I'll say it, what do I believe? I believe the aim of the Lib Lab Con governments is to make paedophilia acceptable, a normal part of society. That's where I think our politicians are going. But basically there is this massive attack on the children's minds. Just give you a quick reply to that. We've got some more stuff on the BBC. Mike.
Yeah, I totally agree, Brian. I mean, I remember looking back 10, 11 years ago now when I was first brought to my attention about the 1922 Frankfurt School and their 11 points and how to get into society, make change and change people's views and cultures and what they wanted to do to achieve that. And it seems to be now that every one of them 11 points plus more has been ticked off. Here we are living in a society where now they're telling us near enough anything goes. And it's very concerning that it's happened at such a quick rate.
Yeah. Well, how's it being pushed in? We're going to, return to the BBC and in particular to BBC Media Action, the so-called charity. Now, this is an article that we published back in 2014. I'm going to say again, if people haven't read it, please do so. BBC Media Action Subversion from Broadcasting House to Kazakhstan. And in this, what are we doing? We're basically saying that they are pushing an agenda to change not only effectively British society, but that's been exported to overturn the governments overseas. And the evidence has been taken from their own documentation. Well, have a look at this. Thank you very much to our viewer that found it. Reframing the Evidence Debates, a view from the Media for Development sector. Now, remember, this is a charity. It claims it's independent. It claims it's alongside the BBC, but not part of it. And what are they talking about? Well, they're saying that donors, policymakers and practitioners need evidence to inform their policy and programming choices. You can find this document online, read it for yourself. The Media for Development sector is one example. Nevertheless, donors, governments and private foundations working in international development have long recognised the importance of, wait for it, independent media. And so it goes on. Well, let's have a look at a bit more. They tell us what Media for Development is. It refers to the use of media and communications to facilitate development outcomes. Look at the techniques here. Techniques include information dissemination, education, behaviour change, communication, social marketing, social mobilisation. And down at the bottom it says that media development involves capacity strengthening for institutions and individuals to develop a free, independent, plural media. This is outrageous. What we've got is socio-political engineering, supposedly carried out by a charity that's independent. Well, of course, they're not at all. Let's see what they're talking about in a bit more detail. Well, in their own document, they've got this, a scene from Soul City's television drama, which uses entertainment education to inform the public, raise debate, and here it is, shift attitudes and behaviours around key health and development concerns. So this arrogant little charity says that we shouldn't worry, we should allow them to reframe and shift our attitudes and behaviour. That's why they're pushing the filth out to, the BBC's pushing the filth out to young people. And then they're boasting about their own Semya Kenya programme, which has got in amongst the Kenyan population. They think they're developing an independent media, but in fact the BBC is training their own media teams on the ground. So what about this? They team up with people who are obscenely wealthy. And this is their own words from Media Action. We're interested in the work going on with philanthropic organisations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Knight Foundation. They are leading on some of the conversations around what counts as evidence, and we're aware that we have a lot to learn from them and share with each other. So we've got a charity which says it's independent of the BBC, but of course it's absolutely not. And who are they working alongside? Obscenely wealthy people whose views certainly don't correlate with mine, and I suspect they don't correlate with a lot of other people. Can we prove some of this stuff? Well, it's dead easy if you have a look at their material. This is part of their own accounts. The BBC Group donation represents the gift in kind of office facilities. So basically, the BBC helping to support them by gifting office facilities. Remember, this charity says it's independent. And here we go. Well, who looks after the staff? This is out of their own documents. All UK staff employed on a continuing basis by BBC Media Action have employment contracts with the BBC. So it's not as if they're on peanuts. Top salary here, £130,000, but they're basically their salaries being run by the BBC. Who's paying for that? Well, of course, we are. So to claim they're independent is outrageous. Have you seen anything of this advert, Mike, at all?
No, I've not, Brian. But it sounds pretty familiar to me, doesn't it? The state, which I see the BBC as a state broadcaster, facilitating dodgy outfits. It wasn't so long ago when we look back at the Home Office facilitating PI in the 70s and 80s, the paedophile information exchange, providing printing and office space at the Home Office for them as well. So it's endemic, really, in our establishment. They will do anything to promote and normalise their operation, as it were. In this case, paedophilia. But yeah, I mean, we hear all the same language all the time. This must be word of 2015. Reframing. In my book, that's brainwashing. That's all they're doing. These are just projects, and there's hundreds of these projects going on, not just within the BBC. It's happening at corporate levels in big companies as well. It's happening to their staff. They're using Common Purpose to assist with it. Well, I see Common Purpose at the front of it, and of course, the BBC is renowned to be rife with Common Purpose. So yeah, looking from the outside, once you're awake to it all, you can see exactly what's going on, and you can see what their agenda is.
Yeah, couldn't have put it better. Reframing. They want to reframe us into their way of thinking, and as we saw at the beginning of the programme, that's a pretty dark, perverted way of thinking. A question live on air to Nick. We were hoping to have Mark Anderson on. Are we going to be okay for that? Sorry for that little interruption there. We wanted to get Mark Anderson back on with us today to give us an update on Bilderberg. I believe that is going to be possible. So I'm going to say to you, Mike, thank you very much for coming on and joining us.
No problem.
And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And it's great that Bastion Radio is back up and running again.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Well, just before we see whether we can connect with Mark Anderson, I'll just add that one of the other piece of information we've had is an email from a viewer who has said that basically on Antwerp Central Station, he was very surprised to see the BBC advertising for their, quote, unmissable British drama Silent Witness. And the point is that the BBC, of course, taking funds out of the British taxpayer, what are they doing? Well, they're now working to programme the world. And that will continue unless enough of us make a suitable protest about that. Okay, well, things seem to be going well today. So I think we're going to very, very shortly bring in Mark Anderson. I'm just watching the screen. He is there, I think, just about to come in front of the camera. And we'll see what's been happening with the great and the good at that Bilderberg meeting. And let's remember, of course, that we've got Rona Fairhead from the BBC attending the secretive Bilderberg meeting. And, of course, Marcus Agius, who was formerly involved with the BBC Trust and chairman of Barclays, as you do. BBC paying him a mere £48,000. I think it was for 2 days work a week. It might have been for a year, but who knows if you're a banker. So, Mark, have we got you?
You do, Brian.
Okay, I'll just wait. We should have some visual for you shortly. Here we are. Okay, we can see you. Thank you very much. What's been happening in the world of Bilderberg?
Well, a lot of them are arriving today by private jet at Innsbruck Airport. I've got a team, We Are Change Switzerland, out there. We're working together, collaborating to get photos and photo and visual confirmation, precisely because the Hotel Interalpen, where they're meeting this year, is so secluded, surrounded by very dense woods, up on a hill where you cannot see it from street level, and because the secrecy, or excuse me, well, the secrecy too, but the security is so extra tight. So we're taking advantage of this narrow window to visually and photographically see who else is showing up.
Right. Mark, you were talking about the difficulties of sort of getting photographs and getting close to this, getting close to the action in that Bilderberg meeting.
Indeed.
And you mentioned that some local people, you expected some local people on scene. Have you managed to talk to some of the locals and find out what their opinion is of the whole Bilderberg meeting as it stands?
Well, some I've talked to, everyone from someone at the Munich, Germany airport newsstand down into Austria, a lady on the train on the way to Austria, and some people in the hotel and restaurant where I'm staying and in surrounding businesses. There's just a general awareness that Bilderberg, or something called Bilderberg, is here. There doesn't seem to be a lot of awareness as to who or what they're really about. A couple of newspapers broke what otherwise would have been European media silence. As I mentioned before, the European media, having traditionally been aggressive about reporting Bilderberg, has backed off a bit, but they're not as bad as the virtual blackout in the U.S. that is sustained to this day. But one German-speaking newspaper here in Austria, the Courier, K-U-R-I-E-R, and let me get this right, excuse me, the Tiroler Tagzeitung, it's here in the region of Tyrol in Western Austria. Those two papers printed in the last 24 hours some respectable coverage of Bilderberg. I'm told by one of the We Are Change Swiss people that I work with that the Swiss press is pretty much asleep at the wheel, and he was a little disturbed and surprised at that. But the awareness has been raised. We'll see if there's a turnout big on Sunday, where up to 1,000 protesters reportedly are supposed to show up here in Telfs to protest Bilderberg. We'll see if the numbers get that high.
Right. And what about Bilderberg themselves? I know that occasionally they've sort of have released a little bit of information as the talks progress. Is there any sign of that happening?
Yes. They've released some 15 topics. And the topics are a lot of one-liners. As noted, USA is one topic.
Oh, yeah.
Middle East is another. And interestingly, USA elections, Russia, Greece, they're worried about the Greek back out of the euro. And they're worried about nations reverting to nationalism and getting away from internationalism and supranationalism and transnationalism, as Bilderberg advocates. So we're looking at, again, who's coming into Innsbruck Airport. I've got a team out there as we speak, early afternoon here in Telfs. They found a very good vantage point at which to shoot photos. We scoped it out yesterday. We all went to Innsbruck and looked at the airport. Strangely enough, and I don't know if this is normal, just a footnote, when we went to Innsbruck yesterday to the airport at the afternoon of Wednesday, June 10th, the airport was virtually empty. On a typical early evening during the week. Only police were mainly visible there. There was one coffee attendant in a cafe, and there were no other employees at their posts whatsoever. maybe I'm just too much from the United States, but that struck me as odd. Whether that's normal or not, I don't know for sure, but it was kind of eerie and strange. And then we took the advantage of that to look it over and see where the private planes come in, and see where the passengers from the private planes, where they would disembark. And we got all that scoped out, so we knew that this is our only narrow window today, the first day of Bilderberg, Thursday, June 11, as they're coming into town. It's as far as we can see, it's our only narrow window of opportunity to get photographic and visual confirmation of some of the people attending.
Yeah, I would like to say that I've done my homework on this. I haven't, but I'll just throw the question at you. Has there been any interest from the Russian side? Has Russia Today been reporting some of this? You might not know, because I know you're on the ground with Bilderberg at the moment. But have you heard anything coming out of Russia?
No, I have not. I took the liberty of sending them a lot of notices, news tips, news links, and whatnot. Not that they necessarily needed to be alerted, but just a friendly reminder that Bilderberg was happening. I have not checked RT's website, simply due to time constraints and other things. But I would imagine, I know they covered it in Switzerland in 2011 and other years recently. So I would imagine they're doing something, But strangely, now that you remind me, Brian, when I was in Denmark for Bilderberg last year, and I turned on the TV, the RT coverage of Bilderberg was rather more like Charlie Skelton's coverage. What little I saw, to be fair, I didn't see very much, and there very well may have been other things more substantial. But there was this one younger guy on there, I don't remember his name, I had never heard of him before, that was making the same kind of sort of snarky, sarcastic remarks about Bilderberg, as to, characterize it as just sort of a passing fancy, interesting but ultimately forgettable. And I thought that it was below RT's usual standards.
Yeah, well, possibly, of course, that could be the fault of the person doing the reporting for them. But one would have thought that President Putin would have a little bit of a greater interest in exposing more, or at least publicizing more of Bilderberg and the fact it's meeting and discussing Russia.
Yeah, this year they would have a real strong incentive. Maybe as we're talking here in real time, I could just go to RT. I think it's RT.com. Let's see if there's any major headlines, just so we don't pass it up without looking. Well, it's not right on top, and I don't want to take a lot of time on a live feed here, or virtual live for what you're doing. Nothing right on the front page. That doesn't mean there's nothing there at all. That's a little strange. Usually that kind of thing would be front and center, because it's a narrow thing. It's not like it happens every day. It's only once a year. So right now I'm not seeing anything, but I'm only giving it a cursory glance.
Okay, well, we can have a look. We can have a look at for ourselves. But thank you for that. It just seems to me that President Putin would take a strong interest in immensely powerful globalists meeting with political leaders behind closed doors, particularly when the rumours we've heard is that in the Kremlin at the moment, they're saying, how on earth do we form foreign policy with the British government which is acting with lunacy? That was the general line of it. The Russians were saying, how do you actually deal with a country where, if you look at the government, British government they were talking about, you've got a country being run by people who are mentally unsound. Yeah.
Indeed. The interest should be strong for Vladimir Putin, in that Ukraine was a topic at 2014 Bilderberg. Russia is a topic at this year's Bilderberg. We know what they're talking about to a reasonable degree. Jessica Tuchman-Matthews of the Carnegie Endowment, a longtime American attendee of Bilderberg and a member of the steering committee that selects the sites and helps decide who to invite, when and where and all that, the organizers. She has called Putin, and Russia some very unflattering things, basically saying that, they're the aggressors. They invaded Crimea, the typical Western narrative, and without any real balance or objectivity whatsoever. And she called Putin a bully, in fact, only recently to fellow Bilderberg member Charlie Rose, a public television American TV host. And Charlie Rose is there, and Matthews are there as we speak here at Bilderberg in 2015 in Austria. So, yeah, they have a very jaundiced view, a very negative view of Russia, whatever Russia's imperfections may be. But I'm hearing also through fairly reliable sources, Brian, that NATO is doing some pretty provocative maneuvers near the Russian border. I haven't confirmed all of that, but Gary Franchi of the Next News Network has revealed some of that, and I want to confirm some of that in my own way, and maybe you do too. But, NATO in every respect is the aggressor. How would America like it if Russia had maneuvers on the Canadian border with artillery, for example? America would go haywire. So, I don't think Americans can get the objectivity they need out of the mainstream media to understand how things look from Putin's perspective.
Yeah, well, I would totally agree with that. And as I said yesterday or the day before, as an ex-military man myself, I find it fascinating that here I am in 2015 looking at what I'm being told by the so-called truthful media, particularly the BBC, which is clearly a pack of lies about what the real situation is with Russia and what has been happening in Ukraine. And who was the lady Baroness Ashton, of course, muttered that she was going to do some investigation to find out who those snipers were that were clearly stirring up trouble in Ukraine. And quick as a flash, we hear nothing further about that. So pretty dirty stuff going on. Putin says that there are subversives from the West causing trouble. I think he's absolutely right. And of course, if people do read our BBC Media Action Report, you can read of the BBC boasting of their ability to help destabilise nation states. And, they've been into Libya, Syria, Kazakhstan itself. I think this is one of the things that it would be nice if we could get through to an American audience, that the BBC simply not to be trusted.
Yeah, they almost operate as a quasi-intelligence agency, intelligence/news, not unlike Project Mockingbird, where the CIA, the U.S. CIA, the top intel, infiltrated certain news organizations even decades ago. And so you look at the news media and you detect in the mainstream larger corporate media, at least, you detect, that they are more of an agitator and intel type thing. Of course, the U.S. media is notorious for playing black against white and stirring up racial turmoil and racial distrust, really quite deliberately.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you very much for that report. The time is such that we're just coming to a close. So thank you for joining us. Do let us know whether you can give us any further update reports. We're delighted to have you, as always.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, there'll be a lot soon. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, as we come to the end of today's UK column news, I'll just bring up that BBC slide that I mentioned earlier. Here's the big advert from Antwerp Central Station. It did say unmissable British drama, but we thought we should probably censor that. So we're going to say, please do miss it. But here's the BBC simply advertising itself with your money. Now, immediately following the news, we have 3 hours of evidence around the Linda Lewis child stealing case in Neathport Talbot, Wales. We understand 3 hours is a very long time. However, one of the key factors that always comes up on the subject of child abuse, particularly when social services and the NHS are involved, is the subject of evidence. We have put together interviews with Welsh Assembly member Bethan Jenkins and the Linda Lewis campaign, and a talk that was done for Linda Lewis back in 2008. So I hope that you will stay and watch that. You may need a cup of tea in the middle of it. But before we just switch over to that, have a look at this headline from the BBC. Social worker lied about woman's threat to kill family. Basically, a lady called Amanda McCullum, who was employed by Derby, told a manager the woman had made threats to kill herself and her family and burn down her house. What does she get? She's suspended for 12 months. She destroys a family. The woman is simply suspended. But of course, this is a common lie by social workers to take children. The mother is going to kill the child and then commit suicide. Standard tactic. Just happens to be the very tactic used against Linda Lewis to enable her daughter to be stolen at gunpoint in America by Neath Port Talbot Social Services. So I hope you will stay with the UK column and listen to what is effectively a 3-hour documentary on that case. Thanks very much for joining us. Be back same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.